those in favor.
All in favor? Okay, let's go to Fire District and Carleton. Once again, thanks for coming. This is kind of a routine or regular appearance, and we appreciate it. And as you see, we do have quite a few things on our agenda, but so I don't know.
That's a hint because I talk long.
No, it's not because of that. It's just, yeah. No, it's not you. It's not you. It's just a question of allocating. So let's aim for half an hour or so. But we'll just play it as it goes. And we may very well want to table some items on the agenda. So I don't need to put pressure on you.
Sure.
No, you can believe me or not. But we'll obviously want time for question and answer.
Sure.
And not limited necessarily to what you talk about. So.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. So, hi. So the cold weather is set in, obviously. One of the things I want to bring up tonight is definitely speaking about carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide with open flame inside your homes. It's not a good idea unless it's vented. And you need to take care of yourselves. So a couple years back, we had a very big snowstorm. This is probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I was making my rounds around the community because we did not have power. And went over to an individual's house because I knew they were alone. And walked into the home, and they had a open flame kerosene burner, big one, not a little small one, but a big one, heating their home at the time. And this individual was very tired, was almost altered mental status at the time. So I called over some more assistance, and some firefighters came over with carbon monoxide readers. And the carbon monoxide readers we carry are very, very specific to 4 different gases, one of them being carbon monoxide. And it alerted us to high degrees, about 300 parts per million of carbon monoxide in the home before we even entered the home. So that's what was coming out her front door because we had left that open. So that individual got placed in a different home that evening, but she definitely would not have survived that evening. If she would have fallen asleep, she would not have woken up the next day. So I want to make sure that you guys reach out to the people that you know that may not have heating sources other than open flame inside their home. And I'm not talking about a fireplace that has venting to the outside, those types of things. But people that might be using their gas stoves or anything like that to provide heat in their home. Okay, so please make sure that they're aware that that can be deadly. And if you have any questions or if anybody needs any help, they're welcome to reach out to me or anybody at the fire hall to see if we can help them through either the propane company or through PSE. Okay? So please let them know that. Other than that, the fire districts were doing really well this year. We've had a lot of events that have gone extremely well. We've established some footholds into the community with our community paramedic program. We now see 7 people on a weekly basis. Every Friday we go out and we see 7 people. Working with Circle of Care, we have almost monthly meetings, maybe every other month, bi-monthly meetings with Circle of Care and other stakeholders inside the community when it is for outreach of those that don't have a lot of funds or just the elderly as a primary reach out. So the program's going really well. We're really happy with that, and Virginia Lester and Deb Shields are helping with that as we go through the community on Fridays. We've had a couple hospice people in the community. One, Bob Jewell died, and he was in hospice, and we were part of his care up to his passing. And we now have another hospice person within the community, and we're doing outreach services along with Circle of Care and other organizations to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible. And they have the right to stay here. I want everybody here in this room and everybody in this community not to think that they have to leave Point Roberts as they age, because we're really reaching out to social services in the county. We're starting to put a lot of pressure on the county, stating that if other parts of the county are getting the social services or taxpayer funded services, we should be receiving the same up here in Point Roberts. We're also reaching out to our Congress women and men to see if they might be able to do something at the state level in requiring those who Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance companies, that they would pay for those types of services here in Point Roberts as well. So we're working on helping people stay in their homes through every avenue that we know of at this point. Obviously, it doesn't go as fast as I would want it to go, or other people, and sometimes I get frustrated with the time frames and the things that have to happen, but hopefully we'll get some return on that in the future. Okay, so that's one thing. The dealing with cell phones here in Point Roberts. Verizon, we stay in contact about every month, and they've made headway with their counterpart, TELUS, on the Canadian side. They're looking at completing an agreement to where TELUS can push their signal over this border and Verizon can push their signal north. Therefore, Verizon will be able to push south too. They're planning on possibly redoing their antenna array on top of the tower, which is by the water towers, by the fire hall there, and making it a better array and upgrading the technology there too. They just lost their #1 poll to AT&T. I don't know if you guys know that, but they lost the Seattle market as being the best and the fastest to AT&T. So I think that woke them up a little bit, and they're starting to put more money back into this part of the country. So I'm hoping that sometime early 2020, you'll start seeing improvements on cell phone coverage here. Now, there's a number that I'm going to publish for US people when their cell phones aren't reaching a Verizon tower, they're roaming onto Canadian signals, and then the Canadians as well. And it's a backline into Prospect Dispatch. Prospect Dispatch is the fire dispatch. They dispatch out the ambulances and fire trucks. Watcom is where every 911, it's law enforcement side, so it's known as Watcom. Every 911 call goes to Watcom in the county when it's dialed by either a payphone or by a landline. So when you pick up a landline, pick up the phone here, you dial 911, it goes straight to Whatcom County. There's no way it can get into Canada. I'm just letting you know that. Okay? I know somebody brought that up at Meet the Candidates nights the other night, and it's not about landlines. The problem we have is with cell phones. Okay? So any landline you can get to, you dial 911, it's going straight to Bellingham to Whatcom. There's no way it can be transferred up to Canada. Okay? Does everybody understand that? I just want to clear the air on that if there's some confusion. So the number for cell phones to dial is 360-676-6811. 360-676-6811. Now, if you dial that from your cell phone, whether you're connected into a Canadian tower or not, you're going to reach Prospect Dispatch.
What's the last four digits?
6811. Pretty close to 911. So if you put that into your phones as emergency or some type of where you would scroll and notice that as a 911 number, not as 911 because that's 911, right? But if you put an emergency or secondary emergency, something like that into your phones, that's going to take you directly to Prospect. And they're going to answer the phone, what is your emergency? Fire, ambulance. Now if you need law enforcement, you're going to need to tell Prospect you need to be transferred to law enforcement. Because Prospect only dispatches fire and EMS. Okay, medical. Everybody good? I'm planning on doing an article in the newspaper and publishing that community-wide. So our visitors, our residents, and those that travel internationally know that number. Okay? But from a landline, you should be picking up and dial 911 from a landline. Okay? So that number really is specific to cell phone usage. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Budgetary-wise, in the district, we're doing well. We're at the same level we've been for the last 3-4 years at this time. So we're about 31, 32, 33, somewhere in there, % on remaining budget for the year. Our year starts, our 2020 starts in December. So December 1st everything that happens in December, except up to the meeting date, any bills coming up to the commissioners' meeting date. Anything past the commissioners' date is paid in the 2020 budget. So we actually go from really December to November for our budgetary purposes. All of our budgets are online, so you can get on our website. You can see them back all the way, I think, until 2011. I think our budgets are posted. All of our meetings are videotaped, and those meetings, they're merged if it's two separate videos in that meeting. Because of size, they just end up being two. They're merged, and we publish those on our website as well. So anybody that can't physically make our meetings on a monthly basis can always watch the video at their leisure, and we try to have that posted by the end of the month. But sometimes we have difficulty because of the person that I take it to merge with their time frames. And we'll try to get it always posted before the next meeting happens. We also publish our meeting minutes online once they're approved after the meeting. And again, I try to get those up as quickly as possible as well. So know that you can always go back if you hear something, hear something or read something that this happened at the last meeting. You can always go back into the video and see what was said, how it was said, and who it was said by. So you have the first-hand knowledge and not secondary or subjective. Okay? Any questions on that? No? Our capital facilities plan has been published since last June, July on the website as well, and it's 2018 through 2036, I believe. And this is a plan that we're going to be revisiting about every couple years after it was published to see if we're still on track with the numbers that are in that plan. It's a very involved plan, but it will teach you a lot about the district and the budgetary processes that have gone in the past and those that we're working with now. So every year we're allowed to take 1%, and that's allowed by law. So the 1% is what we take, so that's something that you should expect that the commissioners will most likely vote in. And just to get you an idea of how much money that is for me, it's only $6,000. So I have a $600,000 budget. Okay, that's roughly, it's a little over this year, so 1% of that is $6,000. That doesn't even buy 2 sets of bunker gear. Just to let you know, that wouldn't even outfit 2 firefighters in gear. So the SCBA's, we got a grant of $163,000 roughly, somewhere around $160,000 from the federal government a couple years ago. And the air packs that we wear, each one of those is around $7,000. So $160,000 bought us 20 air packs. Okay, and we were right there. They're good for 15 years now, so we're going to be good for a while, and I wouldn't have to replace any of those or have to look at that type of purchase again. We're looking at replacing Battalion 58, which is the red truck that drives around. That is getting definitely very old, and turning that into maybe a utility truck if we can purchase a new emergency response vehicle for that. Our red ambulance is still doing well. It's a 2007. The 1991 white ambulance, though, that one was bought at a trade show, right at the trade show back in 1991. It is in pristine condition on the inside, but again, it's getting old. So we need to look at replacing that probably in the next 3 or 4 years. This plan, if you go online and take a look at it, it lays out what we had defined as capital necessities through all those years and what we plan on replacing every single year. I'll tell you that we're already behind with Battalion 58. We were supposed to replace that last year, but we just don't have the money to do that, so we're having to extend that out. My fire trucks, I'm looking at taking out to 40 plus years. And I'm talking big red, little red, not the brand new one that we have. But I was asked today, we did a tour for the children at the school today, so all the children came over to the fire hall today. We watched the safety video, took some pictures, and one of the teachers looks at our new fire truck and goes, "Is this what new fire trucks are?" Right? Because you're used to the big red ones, white ones, whatever it may be. And I said, yeah, in the future, if you go over to Europe, you won't see big ones like we have. Europe has little small ones, maybe a little bit bigger than the small one we have now. But the way of the future, the small one does as much as the big ones now. And the small one was $300,000, $325 with tax. But the new big ones, if we bought one of the ones like we have now, you're looking at $500,000 to $750,000. That's one fire truck.
New or
These are new. New. Refurbished, it depends how old the trucks are. And we've looked into refurbishment for our, we call it Big Red, 5802, which was bought back in 1991, and it was made specifically for this district when David Gallatley was the fire chief, so they went through that purchase. Or he was on the organization, I'm not sure if he was fire chief at the time. But Little Red was purchased from District 4, and we spent $40,000, I think 36 somewhere in there, on getting that up to speed so it could serve this community. And part of that was the transmission issue. So it depends upon what year. Average refurbishment on trucks like that in today's dollar is about $250,000 to $270,000 to have one of those engines refurbished. And that's either level 2, which is not everything. Level 1 refurbishment is they replace almost every bolt. And they repaint it, and they go through the pump, and they reseal the pump and everything else. So on every truck that we have, except the ambulances, we have water. So the big one we have is 1,800 gallons sitting on it all the time. So when we pull up in front of your home, we have 1,800 gallons to work with before we need to be connected to a hydrant. Does that make sense? So the Little Red has 750 gallons on it. The new one has 300 gallons on it, but it has what's called a CAF system, a compressed air foam system, which extends that water out to about 10,000 gallons. So yes.
How fast does it go to? How fast do you go to the 1,800 gallons?
So our hoses. So when we pull off an attack line, one of our what we call crosslays, the crosslay flows about 150 gallons a minute. So if we sat there with it fully open, and that's the only line we had out, and the only line that we needed to have flowing, depending on the size of the fire, then 150 into 1,800. But when you talk 750 gallons, you're looking at 6 minutes, 5 minutes of water time. With 300 gallons, we flow water at around 30 gallons per minute because it's mixed with air and foam, because it's a compressed air foam, so we have air, water, and foam going through that line on the new truck. And its suppression capability is much greater than just water when we're utilizing foam. A lot of the times we'll have a tremendous amount of water damage in your house, but with caps we can reduce that now if your house is still livable after the incident. So the little truck actually, it can pump 1,500 gallons a minute, just like the big trucks. So it's capable of pushing the same amount of water, but it carries less, right? It's a Ford 550 that's painted really nice and has some lights on top of it. With the bed area, has the units, just the fire truck unit put on it. So the nice thing about that is that's a poly type of substance. It's not metal. So the whole back side of that our new truck is a poly. And if we ever get in a wreck, it'll be interesting to see where we send it to get it fixed, right? But when the truck wears out, we can actually just unbolt the whole pump and everything, pick it up and slide it underneath the new chassis. So we won't necessarily have to replace the entire truck. So that's another positive of the new truck. Plus, it's much more efficient on fuel, maintenance costs, and getting around Point Roberts. There's some places that we can't get into with our big truck, right? It just won't go down the driveways. And if it's wet, if it's soggy, it'll sink because they're extremely heavy. So I want to ask you, go online and read our capital facilities plan. And it's on the website, wcfd5.com. And if you have any questions about that, please come to me. Again, I say at all these meetings that my chairs in my office is always cold because no one ever comes in and sits down and has a conversation with me. I've had a few people come by and say hi, which is wonderful. I enjoy that and would love to see you. If you don't want to meet in my office because it's too official, then we can meet out for coffee if you would like to do that. But I'd like to get to know you better. Not only as your fire chief, but as a community member as well. So I'd love to get to know more people. So I'll leave it there, and I'll open myself up to questions.
Is 5 spelled out in your internet address, or?
It is not. So it's WCFD and then number 5.com. Yeah. And if you go into the public info area, that's where all the meeting videos are and the meeting minutes and everything like that. Yes.
Some internal heaters have a catalyst, which has a white flame basically, but they're still not safe, right?
It depends. So we bought some heaters from Lowe's to heat up our red tents when we set up our command tents or We have the Halloween haunted house coming up on October 26th. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but
No.
we set up the heaters in the outside tents and they burn clean. So you can find propane heaters that burn clean inside your home that give off no carbon monoxide. It's just you have to be able to educate yourself on which ones.
They still give off carbon dioxide.
So
Still
carbon
replaces
monoxide.
oxygen, but yeah, it's not as bad as carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
But we have zero, when we're inside the tents, we have our meters in there just to confirm, and they're always zeroed out on carbon monoxide. So it's always a good idea to have a little window
Let's have
open.
a fair amount of air transfer in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I just want to thank you for coming to the market and the summer, and hope that you continue next year with that outreach and doing blood pressure and stuff. That was really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to start next year in May.
Great. Absolutely. Like, we enjoy it. We don't always get there, and everybody needs to understand we're still an emergency response organization. And as much as we want to get there every Saturday, some Saturdays we get too busy with administrative duties or we get calls and we're unable to make it. This year we're already at 333 calls. Last year we ran 362 calls, which was our busiest year, almost 100 over 2017. And this year we'll probably be close to 400 by the end of the year. Some of that though is the community paramedic program, because those are calls for public service and those are counted. Right? So it's not all lights and sirens everywhere that you think of those. Please understand we also do a free smoke detector program. And if you know of anybody that needs their smoke detectors checked before winter or needs smoke detectors, it's not for commercial, but it's for residential, and they're free of charge. So you can have a lot of cute firefighters come over and install your smoke detectors inside your home. And we'll do a home safety inspection at the same time. We'll walk through your home and make sure it's as safe as possible. One of the biggest issues we have with elderly is they have the throw rugs, right? And one of the biggest trip hazards ends up being throw rugs for elderly. So we try to move those out of the home if they are accepting to that.
What age do you consider elderly?
48. 48, because I'm 48.
Biggest
Yeah.
hazard in my house are my slippers.
Slippers,
Stay on my feet.
You want to get grabby slippers? Yes.
When are you doing CPR again? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, so every second Monday of every month, we have CPR class, and that's at 6 o'clock at the hall. We're happy to put together a CPR class and hold it here at the community center, if you guys would like that. We also do sometimes during the summer. This last summer was the first summer we haven't gone out and done a private one down in Maple Beach, which we love to do because it's usually in somebody's front yard on a nice rainy day, on a nice sunny day hopefully, right? Otherwise we move it up to the fire hall. But the basis of life all begins with quality CPR. So if somebody goes into cardiac arrest, you lose 10% survivability every minute without high quality CPR. With good CPR, so in 10 minutes they're unrecoverable if they haven't had blood flow. So their neurological recovery won't happen. We can get pulses back usually by the medications we push and the defibrillations, but it's all about brain survival. And without the continuous or good CPR prior to us getting there, they're not going to have the brain survival. And they'll probably be brain dead, and then they'll be on a life support machine until the family decides to pull them off and hopefully donate organs at that point. I've ran hundreds and hundreds of cardiac arrests in my 25 years. We just had a little girl, I don't know if you read it in the paper down in Ferndale, I was the lead paramedic on it. 15-month-old little girl that got her head crushed by a tractor weight. And the family drove up to our station. We actually got dispatched a couple minutes prior to that. We were actually heading out on another call, and the truck came streaming into our parking lot, and they handed us this limp little girl. Right? So we worked her, and I intubated her, so I passed a tube down her trachea. We got her to the hospital with pulses. They flew her down to Children's, immediately did brain surgery, but her brain had been lacerated, and it was unsurvivable. So her family decided to donate her organs, so it hopefully will help another child survive something. I've seen a lot of bad things in my career, and children, I've ran tons of children cardiac arrests, non-accidental trauma is what we call NAT, N-A-T, abuse from their parents, all of those types of things. And it takes a toll on us as well. I guess to be personal with you, the thing that got me was after 23 years. And it was walking in on a double hanging here on Gulf Road. Seeing a mother-daughter in that circumstance. And I had seen plenty of single hangings in my career, but I had never seen a double hanging before. And I came out of that house very upset. And at that point, I knew I had reached my threshold in seeing bad things. And I had to bring up specialized people, debriefing people, not only for myself, but for the team that had responded to that incident. Because some of my team, it was their first call ever that they walked in on. Now, dealing with children, I don't have children, but my partners do, right? They have children, school-aged. And when we run calls like this, it affects my partners even more because they look at it as, this could be my son, this could be my daughter, right? But CPR, that's the basis of everything. If we don't have CPR started before we get there, then the person's probably not going to survive. It's very low. With high-quality CPR on somebody, it decreases that 10% down to 3 to 4%, dying every minute. Okay, so it really extends out the time, their life, their neurological recovery, the benefit to them. If you guys can get on the chest wall, and even if you don't come to a CPR class, get on the chest wall, put your hands in the center, go up and down about 110 beats per minute. Okay, and staying alive is a song you can sing to yourself. Now, some of you might have really bad rhythm, right? You may not go fast enough, or you may go too fast. Anything's better than nothing until we arrive to help people. And I have 5 AEDs around the community, one here in the hallway, automatic external defibrillators, and during that CPR classes, we will teach you how to use those. So if somebody dies here, or goes into cardiac arrest here, you can actually do high-quality CPR, and you can get a defibrillation on board before we arrive. And that's going to really increase their opportunity to live.
Could you actually repeat those times and day?
Second Monday of every month at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Second Monday of every month at 6 p.m.
Public thank you for another community event that you and your team helped with, and that was the Circle of Care concert benefit Apple Fest, and it was lots of fun.
That's good.
And it made our work minuscule compared to what you guys were able to do in a short period of time. And it was also kind of a nice benefit that the walls that were covered with black tablecloths, you guys are able to use for your haunted house. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we're building a new maze this year for our haunted house, and you'll probably have to crawl through the tube to get into the house. We'll see if that's the way we set it up.
Would it be knee pads or the other?
No, you need to bring your own knee pads. Yeah.
I was wondering where the other defibrillators are, AEDs.
So the other defibrillators, we have one at the clinic, so we actually give them a defibrillator as well. We maintain that. Here, we have one at the ranger station down at Lighthouse Park, so we have access to a defibrillator. We have another one at Marketplace. Have you guys seen it by the bathrooms? When you're checking out, look up on the wall, and it says AED. It's in a big box, so that's available there. And the next one's going to be probably at the bank. So the 5th one, I'm trying to think if, the sheriff used to carry one of ours too, but it went out of service, it got too old, so they don't have one. Because they get the calls before we do, so it's really nice to have a sheriff's officer, if they're out and about, to have that AED, because they're going to get the call probably a minute and a half before we get dispatched out, and they could be there doing CPR and putting the AED on as well. So we're looking at the church to put an AED in as well, and some people say that's a great place to have it. Not too sure if I agree with that, but we're looking at the church, and then Umpqua Bank has requested one, maybe two. Oh, the golf course is going to have one as well. So, because it's kind of hard for us to drive our ambulances out to a green sometimes, and we're going to have to get in the speediest golf cart they have to get out to the green. Yeah, but they will have one by next summer. Yeah.
I heard that the helicopter can no longer land at the fire station. Is that correct?
No. Where'd you hear that?
You know, I would divulge the name if I could remember.
It's okay. You don't need to. No, we land a helicopter wherever we need.
Landing up at Wayland Drive or something for some reason.
Oh no, we land next to the house that we're at. So that's why we landed on top of Wayland Drive, is because we had a patient on top of Wayland Drive. So we actually land the helicopter as close as we can. We'll land them in your yard. If your yard's big enough, you'll have the helicopter coming down in your yard. Or on the street next to your house if we don't have power lines and stuff.
This is the Breakers parking lot.
Yeah, Breakers parking lot. We landed there one day because we had a patient up on Marine Drive that we brought down the breakers. We'll land them anywhere they can if the weather allows and the ground allows and the obstructions allow, versus driving them all the way back to the fire hall. So any open area they'll land in. We've landed them on Bayview Drive, in between the seawall and the homes. They've landed there before. They're really good pilots. So
So I've seen,
Go
I've
ahead.
seen the big black helicopter land in the last few days. Is, you know, the big Black Hawk
yeah,
looking
that's
thing?
CBP.
Right,
probably
is that
fastest.
related to a merchant?
No, so this is the process. If airlift's available, they'll come out of Bellingham or Arlington. I'll pull them, but if they're further than Arlington, then I won't pull them. We'll probably just transport by ground or transport to medics. If it's a critical patient, we'll meet up with medics from the county if I'm not available, or one of my other paramedics that rotate through here. So if airlift's not flying because of weather, and they don't fly in like, I sometimes get a little frustrated because it's clear here, but they have to fly through rain getting here from Bellingham, and they won't fly through that rain sometimes. Especially when it starts getting really cold, because their $6.5 million helicopter doesn't have de-icing capability.
No.
That was another $1,800, and they didn't spring they didn't spring for it. But it doesn't have de-icing capability. So sometimes we have critical patients, and the helicopter says no. If I have the time, if it's a extrication out of a vehicle or under a home, or we have a cardiac arrest, because we'll work at cardiac arrest for probably 30 to 45 minutes. We'll be doing CPR on that person for 30 to 45 minutes. If we don't get a response back after that 30 to 45 minutes, depending on their past medical history, underlying morbidities, meaning things that they live with, diabetes, already had a CABG, already had multiple stents, had multiple heart attacks, those things, I'll call a doctor and get permission to terminate that resuscitation effort. But if we have somebody that's viable, that we consider that doesn't have the underlying morbidities, okay, then I can request search and rescue from Whitby. So I can request their Black Hawk. Now that Black Hawk takes, once they get dispatched out, 45 to 50 minutes to get here. So I have to balance the time frame. Can we get to St. Joseph's quicker, or do I bring in a Black Hawk? And that's free to you, because you already pay for it through your taxes because they're military based. Right? So if I call the Black Hawk up, it's a free ride to Bellingham for you, but I can't use them as primary. It's against the rules. I have to exhaust the civilian helicopter first, which is Airlift Northwest. My secondary call would be SAR. Okay, and they've come up and they've had at some of our events they've been here. Yeah.
Can we use the Coast Guard?
The Coast Guard helicopter, no.
Oh, because I just know like they do Oregon Island and over there.
Yeah.
If it's somebody who's like, it's desperate and the
Yeah, believe it or
Airlift
not.
Northwest won't come, if the Coast Guard.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's Lummi Island. It's usually Whitby SAR that you see, and not the Coast Guard. Right? You'll see the Navy on the helicopter, and the Coast Guard helicopter. I don't know where it's based out of. I don't think they have one at Bellingham Airport. It's out of Port Angeles, so it's way out of range.
Oh
for
yeah,
us.
because I know it does like Friday Harbor, Orcas Island.
Yeah, it's way out
all
of range for
that,
us.
so-
But actually, Whidbey SAR will be used on like Lummi Islands if they have a need for air transport, because they can land, even though it's a huge helicopter, they can still land at the pad at St. Joseph's Hospital, and they carry paramedics, my level of care, so they can give you the treatment that I'm giving on the way to the hospital as well. Search and rescue. It's the big helicopter you see in the news that goes to Mount Baker and picks people off the cliffs up there, and basically lands on a snowdrift and hovers on that snowdrift, and then they load people onto that when we have hikers and stuff that get lost or they get injured up there. So you can look them up on the internet and see the helicopter and the wonderful pictures too. Yeah.
Have you noticed any difference in the amount of garbage beside the road since the new program came on
So,
board?
I do not want to get into the political discussion. Okay, I am nonpartisan in this. Okay, I believe that we recycle at my home. I believe that we can do better. I think we can do better at the fire hall. for recycling as well. Louise pointed that out at our last open house. Next year, we're going to start having recycling bins and stuff like that and do a better job at that. We'll do what we can. To answer your question, yes. Last 2 times we've gone out, so now we're cleaning a road every month, either Benson or Tyhee. And the last 2 months, we've only picked up about 30 pounds of garbage.
As
Okay.
opposed to? is that
Over
something
100.
less? Okay, a lot less.
Over 100. And we go through Adopt a Road program in the county, so the county pays for those fees to get rid of that garbage and stuff. Because we adopted Tyhee and Benson. I want to adopt APA.
It's taxpayers, you want to take it over?
Oh, well, you're not officially adopted that road yet.
APA or?
APA.
Oh, sorry, we're golf. It's actually on
Oh,
the.
golf? Okay. I don't see no sign.
Yeah,
I might take over golf too.
yeah, we have a sign. But it might be interesting. We're a little, it's on the agenda.
So, but I believe we can all take upon a little bit more responsibility and do better for our community as a whole. But I will not get pulled into a political discussion on that. Yeah. Anything else?
Anything else? Or can we move on? Okay. Thank you very much for coming. You're most welcome.